we're going to look at what coordination means from a 2D, 3D and 4D standpoint today. In the construction industry, sometimes we refer to coordination and just really look at simple clash detection. But yet, at VICO, we believe that it's significantly more. And if you think about the coordination, the hand-eye coordination, or actually the leg-eye, or I suppose they haven't, it gets a bit confusing when you see the picture. Leg coordination without the eyes. But we're talking about the time and the space coordination, as well as just the clashes that we see represented in the 3D automated clash detection sessions. We'll show you some real-life examples and finding those coordination issues, showing you best practices, and also how we can identify and resolve these issues as well. So just to start, a couple of funny introduction pictures. You may have seen some of these before. The ones on the screen at the moment are actually physical clashes that should be discovered before we go to the site, and usually by automated clash detection. Some are more obvious than others. The pipe, as we can see, didn't clash with the wall because we had a center line drawing, but after obviously applying grout, this is number 2, and the tiling, we can see that there is a clash. And number 5, if we pick another one, we've got an outlet, a pipe outlet, that shows it didn't clash before we placed the grill on. However, when we put the grill onto the end of the pipe, the corner detail clashes, and you can see here that we actually have to have some slight modification on site. So these are the traditional ones that we're able to spot. But what about things that aren't necessarily clashes? So the next few pages, I've got a few examples that show that not everything is about clashing. In the urinal, we can see quite a friendly men's room. Might be a few conversations had in that corner. The balcony example, number 3, shows that it really does matter which floor you pick for your apartment as well. A few more examples. Number 2, the bidet. Tough to use if you've got a second leg. And then from the clash avoidance point of view, on the pipe diagram, the screenshot at the bottom, number 5, we can see that we've got a basement where we've performed clash avoidance but not potentially had the optimum solution. A few more. The number 1 there is the tiling, poor details. Number 2, a balustrade right in front of your window where your dining room table will be. And number 4 starts to look a little bit more. This is a site that I worked on in the Middle East, and not nice to see it being advertised as scrap steel, because this is actually over delivery, over orders, an incorrect delivery, and really just such a waste. But 2 football fields full of scrap steel that a just-in-time procurement schedule that had been coordinated might actually be able to mitigate. So that's an introduction into what we're going to talk about today. The agenda, we're relating this to the hard bid environment because we need to know as much as possible about the projects before we bid for them. So we'll have a look at the contracts and the way that the process is moving from the traditional from the traditional to the IPD, and then back to a more traditional, as we have seen in the past, the hard bid environment of fixed price contracts. We'll look at coordination, really what coordination is, and then, as I said, some examples to show us actually what in real life we've come up with from the 2D, 3D and 4D, and prevented going to site by following best practice processes to mitigate these things and to resolve the problems before they get to site. We'll have a look at the services and the benefits, and then summarize to show how we can take things forward. So as Holly indicated, times are changing. We're seeing more and more hard bid contracts. Owners are tightening their spending belts, and we're really looking for, this is a method to identify more and more detail so that we can potentially use that to our advantage in the stages of bidding and carrying out the work. This is going to be a quick section because it's a lot of repeats, so if you've got previous attendance at the Fridays with VICO hard bid webinar series, then maybe some of it will be similar to what you've seen before. So we're progressing. We used to talk about this negotiated bid, and they were becoming more popular, helping the industry to collaborate, bringing more effective use of BIM. But now project owners have actually seen that we can do things a different way and drill down on cost by negating the need for negotiated bids and simply using a hard bid, fixed bid scenario. It's a buyer's market, as we've seen, and therefore, with such competition and fewer contracts, it's obviously having dividends paid for the owners. Traditionally, we've seen so many very small margins, around 3%, and people are trying to cut costs and keep their overheads as low as possible so that they can win more projects. And it's about having the tools to do more with less, and we're all about tracking the detail and being able to manage the change and manage the processes to be able to resolve the issues and also to use them to our advantage as well. A couple of quotes about how the recovery money is being spent. The fixed price contracts, they're looking at to employ to the maximum extent possible, and the reason behind this is to supposedly expose the government to less risk. Just a few quotes there. And then, whether you agree or not with the current administration, we're all players in this hard bid reality, and we're really contracting under these conditions. So Obama notes that risks to taxpayers of cost plus type contracts actually have wasteful, inefficient, and also are subject to misuse. And that the strengthening of contract oversight is about maximizing competition in procurement, and these things are all being seen as being important as we move into the hard bid environment. So it seems this trend is here to stay for some time, and until the liquidity comes back to the financial markets, we can obviously assume that buying of subs, and this is the quote that Holly was opening with about this 4% reduction in margin just to win the business. So we're actually trying to win business and then claw back from change orders and actually looking for low bids to keep our workforce in jobs. So what we're talking about today is actually being able to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So from a BIM standpoint, there is so much value to be gained, and it's through these 2D, 3D, and 4D coordination processes that we can actually enhance our bids and not necessarily be the low bidder just to win the project. So we've got fewer projects around, many competitors trying to win work on reduced margins and therefore less margin for error, excuse the play on words. That we have this hard bid balancing act. So as I said, we're trying to claw back the differences and do more with less. So the benefit of 2D, 3D, and 4D coordination is what we should be looking at, and this is the topic of our webinar today. So let's look back and say, what is coordination? And just ask the question, and if you think about that in your own minds, what does it actually mean to you? If somebody says coordination on a construction project, what actually is that? So we're saying that it's more than just 3D modeling. It's more than just BIM. We're not just buying a couple of seats of software and putting them together. As Holly has many a time suggested, that VDC and many people talk about building this building twice, having a practice run. But all too often do we hear this associated just with the clash detection. So pre-construction doesn't end with clash detection and the coordination session that we have in 3D. The true coordination extends to the BIM, and it provides this value of work onto the site. So we can actually see more prefabrication and less rework on site and better sequencing of operations to reduce the field labour and the interruptions, the downtime, and overall will improve the quality.